Witcher, 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 there's fish people drowning our sheep in the river.
Sounds like drowners. Gonna need spicy mayo.
Okay.
Oil my blade. Witcher magic for every occasion. Killing monsters is what I do.
Okay, can you hurry?
Witcher! A vampire ate my mom!
A Dracula needs garlic butter.
And I guess bringing in a new White Wolf at this point in the season, a bold move and a tall order for Liam.
And of course, he wanted to honor the character that had already been set up, because he knows that he's stepping into a role. But at the same time, he wanted to make sure that his performance was authentic, that it felt like him, that he wasn't playing and mimicking anything. And so
let's just say the reaction is exactly what we expected. It is getting completely and totally annihilated by the fans. In fact, season 4 earned series low Rotten Tomatoes score as Liam Hemsworth's Geralt arrives on Netflix.
I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do it.
And that's where you start to get more uncomfortable when you're thinking, there's not a...
The Witcher was supposed to be 7 seasons, but it was abruptly cut down to 5 after Henry Cavill left, and Lauren Hissrich is lucky she got that. But she does say, are there more stories? Maybe. Well, actually, there's a lot because you skipped them, but this one has to end at this point. So I think it's a nice time for all of us to step back a little bit. And that probably has a lot to do with the audience stepping back a long time ago.
It was posted last night. Netflix's Q2 report came out, and apparently they lost 1 million subscribers in the second quarter of this year, which we already saw that at the beginning of the year, they lost 200,000. The next month, they lost another couple 100,000, and they had projected that they were going to lose a couple million over the next few months. I don't really think people believed it, but it happened.
Millions of people are canceling their Netflix subscriptions. Why Netflix stock is absolutely tanking right now. I mean, it is just collapsing totally in the red. And you can see that it is on a massive downward slope this month. It's cratering. Why is that happening?
And you have a sense that you're going, is this really necessary?
I watched about 35, 40 minutes of the first episode, and I ended up texting Gary. And I just said, dude, I cannot do this. I'm 40 odd minutes in. I'm done. I've had enough. This is utter.
As the years have gone by, Netflix's Witcher series has gotten worse and worse. Recasts, rewrites, moving further away from the source material has truly damaged this show to the point of no return. There's no way that they could save it going into the last season. But now that season 4 is out and we only have 1 more to go, this show is basically hated by everybody.
Let me ask you guys something. Are you excited for Witcher season 4?
Isn't it out right now on Netflix?
Just coming out, and the reviews have started to drop. So
because I looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and bear in mind, given the backlash, I would expect a little bit of review bombing. So people who haven't seen it but who hate the concept. Oh no, you're behind, Drinker.
Has it changed?
It's down to 17.
Nobody expected Family Guy of all shows to throw the hardest punch at The Witcher Season 4. One sarcastic animated roast packed into a quick cutaway gag was all it took for the entire internet to explode.
Witcher, a ghoul,
Sesame glaze,
bear man,
honey mustard,
werewolf,
honey mustard,
no,
honey mustard,
thieving,
lemon pepper,
rat boy,
honey mustard.
Witcher, we's catching snails.
That would be French onion.
Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Fans laughing, critics nodding, and longtime viewers saying the parody somehow captured everything they'd been feeling but couldn't quite put into words. And while people were busy sharing memes and looping the scene for the 10th time, something else was happening behind the curtain. The joke had sparked a reaction inside the world of the show itself.
My job? Kill monsters. Get coin. Use coin on McDonald's app. Get points. Use points to get free McChicken. Only 1,500 points. Every dollar spent is 100 points. Constant BOGOs. I always leave with a free McChicken. It's like I'm stealing from them.
Stealing? You're a thief. Lemon pepper!
For months, The Witcher had been balancing on a tightrope. Loyal readers of the books weren't happy with the creative direction, and fans of the original season still hadn't recovered from the recast. Add in the whispers about rewrites, tension behind the scenes and the constant debate about whether the show was drifting too far from its roots. The pressure was already building like steam under a locked lid. But the Family Guy roast didn't just loosen the lid, it blew it wide open. The moment the episode aired, fans did what fans always do. They dragged Henry Cavill into the conversation even though he had moved on from the show. Suddenly, his old interviews, his comments about lore accuracy, and his quiet departure were being reanalyzed under a magnifying glass. And that's when the fictional scenario begins, the one that shook the fandom to its core. Reports started circulating on fan forums claiming Cavill had privately reached out to Witcher creator Lauren Schmidt Hissrich, confronting her about the direction of the new season after the parody went viral. Whether it was a heated debate, a calm conversation, or something in between, nobody knew for sure. But in this imagined scenario, that single moment becomes the spark that sets off a chain reaction, turning a cartoon joke into a real storm sweeping across the Witcher universe. Because the truth was simple, once comedy puts a spotlight on a problem, it becomes much harder to ignore. And as fans kept replaying the parody, one question grew louder than all the others. If even an animated comedy could see what was wrong with Season 4, why couldn't the people creating it? That was the question that pushed Cavill into the center of the storm, and the reason this fictional confrontation became a turning point no one saw coming. The whole situation began with a single joke, a typical Family Guy cutaway, delivered in their usual chaotic, over-the-top style. But the moment the scene aired, fans felt something different. This wasn't just a quick joke thrown in for laughs. It was a pointed jab at the Witcher's direction, taking aim at the very issues fans had been complaining about for years. Family Guy exaggerated everything, but the core of the parody hit uncomfortably close to home. In the episode, Peter makes a snarky comment about shows getting recast for no reason, and suddenly the screen cuts to a spoof of The Witcher. The parody Geralt looks confused, the writing feels intentionally scattered, and the tone swings wildly from serious to comedic in a way that mirrors what many viewers had noticed in Season 3. Then comes the punchline, a blunt remark about how the new season feels, like someone skipped the books and just made things up on the spot. It was harsh, exaggerated, but it echoed exactly what frustrated fans had been trying to say online. Clips of the scene spread instantly. Fans posted reactions on TikTok, laughing at how savagely accurate the jokes felt. Reddit threads popped up comparing the parody Geralt to Henry Cavill's version, and people were pointing out how even the animated roast seemed closer to the books than some scenes from the upcoming season. What made it even more intense was how quickly the parody overshadowed the actual marketing for Season 4. Within hours, Family Guy Witcher was trending higher than Netflix's official trailers. The parody didn't just poke fun, it tore open the biggest criticisms surrounding the new season. The recast backlash, confusion about the show's creative direction, concerns about writing changes, fear that the tone had drifted too far from the original world. And as the memes started stacking up, fans were tagging Henry Cavill nonstop. Old clips of him talking about staying faithful to the books resurfaced, turning him into the silent symbol of what the show used to be. The internet practically begged him to react, even though he had long moved on. But the most unexpected part was how people inside the industry reacted. Writers, pundits, reviewers, many of them said the parody struck a nerve because satire only works when it reflects something real. And in this case, it reflected the exact anxiety that had been following Season 4 like a shadow. The Family Guy scene became more than a joke. It became a confirmation, at least in the eyes of fans, that something was truly wrong. And it set the stage perfectly for the fictional confrontation that would soon take over the entire conversation around the show. If the Family Guy parody was the spark, the internet was the gasoline. The moment the scene went viral, people who had never even watched The Witcher started chiming in comment sections filled with jokes about downgrade arcs, Netflix magic, and the mystery of why every good fantasy show falls apart after 2 seasons. And while some comments were obviously exaggerated for humor, the underlying sentiment was impossible to ignore. People were losing confidence in Season 4 before it even landed. Before the parody, fans were already uneasy. Rumors had been circulating for months, whispers about heavy rewrites, concerns over the show drifting even further from the source material, and debates about whether the new Geralt could carry the same weight Henry Cavill brought to the role. Some fans were hopeful, trying to give the new season a chance, but others were convinced the shift marked the beginning of the end. Then the Family Guy roast dropped, and everything changed. Suddenly, the jokes weren't just jokes. They became symbolic. Fans treated the scene like a moment of cultural truth, a parody that said what they felt but didn't have the platform to express. Entire Reddit boards filled with side-by-side comparisons, Cavill-era lines from the books next to the Family Guy parody dialogue. People joked that the animated version had more soul than the new scripts. Even influencers who normally stayed neutral started commenting on the situation, saying the parody exposed how disconnected the show had become from its original tone. And the backlash wasn't just casual, it was organized. Hashtags calling for the show to course-correct appeared within hours. Fan groups started discussing alternative storylines they wished the writers had followed. A few even joked that Family Guy should be hired to fix the script. It was chaos. chaos. But it was also a sign that viewers weren't just upset, they felt betrayed. What made it even worse for the Witcher team was the speed. Netflix couldn't push out statements fast enough. Every attempt to hype the new season was drowned out by edits of the parody. People were stitching the clip into TikTok dances, reaction videos, and even deep dive discussions about what went wrong behind the scenes. And in the middle of all this noise, one name kept resurfacing again and again: Henry Cavill. Fans treated him like the silent judge watching from afar. Anytime his face appeared in a clip, comments flooded in with people saying they finally understood why he left, even though the real reasons were more nuanced. The online world simplified it into a narrative. Cavill cared about the books, and the new season didn't. Whether that was fair or not didn't matter. Once the internet builds a story, it spreads like wildfire. This growing wave of criticism didn't stay online for long. It reached the writers, the producers, and eventually the showrunner herself. And if the internet was savage with their jokes, they were even harsher with their speculation. People openly debated whether creative decisions had pushed the series off course. Fingers pointed toward Lauren Schmidt Hissrich, with fans claiming her vision no longer matched the world they loved. In this fictional scenario, that rising pressure is what eventually draws Henry Cavill back into the conversation. Not publicly, not dramatically, but privately, where the real tension begins to build. Because once the parody became bigger than the promotion for season 4, it was clear something had snapped, and the next move would change everything. For a while, Henry Cavill seemed completely untouched by the chaos unfolding online. Fans were tagging him non-stop, creators were stitching his old interviews into reaction videos, and Twitter threads were treating him like the unofficial guardian of the Witcher universe. But Cavill remained silent, calm, composed, and completely off the radar. That silence, however, only made people more desperate for a reaction. To them, Henry was the one person who understood what made the world of The Witcher special. He didn't just play Geralt, he lived inside the lore, breathing it in every day on set. So when the Family Guy parody exploded, fans naturally waited for him to weigh in. The curiosity around him kept building. Viewers started resurfacing old moments where Cavill talked about respecting the books, honoring the original character arcs, and fighting for the heart of the story. These clips suddenly felt like prophecy. Every time he mentioned staying true to the source material, fans saw it as a quiet warning, like he had seen the storm coming long before anyone else did. And with the parody ripping into everything fans were already worried about, his old words hit even harder. Meanwhile, more and more edits began circulating of Cavill's Geralt compared to the new version. Some showed Cavill performing intense scenes directly adapted from the books. Others roasted how wildly different certain season 4 rumors sounded in comparison. His audience treated him like the missing piece of the puzzle, the soul of the series that the show desperately needed but no longer had. It reached a point where anytime someone mentioned The Witcher, Cavill's name showed up a few seconds later. Henry finally sees the viral Family Guy clip, maybe through friends sending it to him, maybe through fans tagging him, or maybe because it was simply impossible to avoid. At first, he reportedly just laughs at the exaggeration, but the more he watches it, the clearer it becomes that underneath all the satire lies a real frustration that viewers have been trying to express for years. And that's what pulls him back into the conversation, even though he had every reason to stay out of it. People close to him in this fictional world claim he doesn't want to stir drama. He respects everyone involved. He's moved on to new projects, and the last thing he wants is to add fuel to a fire already threatening to spiral out of control. But Cavill has always been passionate about the integrity of the Witcher universe, and seeing the parody blow up, seeing fans feel embarrassed, disappointed, or unheard strikes a nerve. So instead of going public, he does something unexpected. He reaches out privately. In this scenario, Cavill contacts the Witcher team, not to attack them, not to lecture them, but to share his perspective on why the parody resonated so strongly. People imagine him calmly explaining how the reaction wasn't just about a cartoon joke. It was a sign that fans felt disconnected from the show's vision. And according to the fictional rumors that begin swirling online, one person in particular becomes the focal point of this behind-the-scenes conversation. Witcher showrunner Lauren Schmidt Hissrich. That's when everything shifts. What was once just internet noise evolves into something much bigger. Fans begin speculating non-stop about the tone of their exchange, whether it was tense, emotional, or surprisingly diplomatic. No one knows for sure, but one thing becomes obvious. Henry Cavill's silent presence suddenly feels louder than any public statement could have been. And in the wake of the parody, his decision to speak, even discreetly, marks the moment the situation begins tipping from chaos into something much more personal. Because once Cavill re-enters the orbit of the show, even briefly, the pressure around season 4 becomes impossible to ignore. While the internet was busy laughing at the parody, Lauren Schmidt Hissrich wasn't finding anything funny. In the real world, she's a professional, experienced creator. The Family Guy roast hits like a wave she didn't see coming. She knew season 4 would be controversial. She knew fans were divided, but nothing prepared her for the speed or scale of the backlash that followed the parody. It wasn't just criticism, it was a full-blown avalanche of memes, breakdowns, commentary channels, and viewers openly questioning the direction of the show. For years, Lauren had been the creative mind driving the Witcher adaptation. She had defended bold decisions, pushed new interpretations, and stood by her vision even when fans pushed back. But now, after the parody, it felt like every decision she ever made was being reevaluated in the harshest light possible. Articles began popping up analyzing the shift in tone, the handling of lore changes, the recast of Geralt, and the pacing of the upcoming season. And while criticism wasn't new to her, this was something entirely different. The issue wasn't that Family Guy made a joke. It was that the joke hit the exact pressure points fans were already arguing about: accuracy, tone, character integrity, and creative direction. The parody didn't create problems. It exposed them. And in the eyes of viewers, it made Lauren the face of everything they felt went wrong. Rumors began swirling online that the production team felt the heat. People speculated that rewrites were happening behind the scenes, that Netflix executives were asking tough questions, and that internal conversations had shifted from confidence to concern. Whether any of that was true didn't matter. The perception alone made things worse. Every whisper became a headline, and every headline added more pressure on the show's leadership. Then came the moment that changed everything: claim that Henry Cavill reached out. When news of the supposed private conversation started spreading in fan circles, it painted Lauren into a corner she never expected. Cavill wasn't just a former lead actor. He was a symbol of the version of the show fans loved. His name carried weight, his silence carried weight, and now his involvement carried even more. In the fictional account of their conversation, Lauren tries to defend her creative direction. She explains the need for adaptation, the challenges of working with multiple audiences, and the pressure of delivering something fresh. But Cavill's perspective, shaped by his deep respect for the source material, clashes with hers, not in a dramatic shouting match, but in a quiet, tense disagreement between two people who love the same world for different reasons. Online communities leap on this fictional exchange immediately. Some say Lauren refused to acknowledge the issues. Others claim she brushed off Cavill's concerns. Speculation grows that she underestimated the fan backlash or didn't realize how strongly the parody reflected public opinion. Whether any of this actually happened isn't the point. In this fictional world, perception becomes reality, and fans spin their own version of events. Suddenly, Lauren finds herself at the center of a storm she didn't anticipate. The parody, the backlash, the rumored confrontation, all of it stacks on her shoulders. The question becomes bigger than a single episode or creative choice. It becomes a matter of trust. Fans want to believe in the show again. They want to feel the world they fell in love with is still intact. But after the parody tore everything open, and after Cavill's fictional involvement brought old wounds back to life, Lauren is now facing the hardest challenge of her entire tenure. Because the next move doesn't just affect Season 4, it determines the future of the entire Witcher franchise. In this imagined scenario, the conversation between Henry Cavill and Lauren Schmidt Hissrich doesn't happen in front of cameras, reporters, or publicists. It begins quietly. A private call, a simple message, maybe even something passed through mutual contacts. But the moment it happens, the tone of everything changes. Henry doesn't approach Lauren with anger or bitterness. That's not who he is. Instead, he brings something that hits much harder: disappointment. The kind of disappointment that comes from someone who truly loved the world he helped bring to life. According to the fictional rumors swirling among fans, Cavill opens the conversation by acknowledging the chaos surrounding the Family Guy parody. He mentions the memes, the clips, the non-stop commentary, and how the internet clearly resonated with the joke. But instead of dwelling on the humor, he shifts to the underlying issue. He tells Lauren that the parody only landed because viewers felt disconnected from the new direction of the show, and that the joke stung because it wasn't entirely inaccurate in the eyes of the fans. Lauren, in this fictional scenario, immediately pushes back. She explains the challenges of running a show of this size, the pressure from executives, the balancing act between book loyalists and casual viewers. She talks about creative freedom, adaptation, and the necessity of taking risks instead of recreating the books word for word. She defends Season 4 as a bold new vision, one she believes will win people over once they see it in full. But Cavill doesn't let that slide. Not aggressively, not emotionally, but firmly. He brings up moments from the books that meant everything to him. He talks about the moral complexity of Geralt, the tone of the world, the intrigue, the depth of the characters, all the things he felt were slowly slipping away. He mentions how fans are reacting, not because they hate change, but because they feel disconnected from the heart of the story they cherish. In this imagined conversation, a moment of tension rises. Lauren insists that evolution is necessary. Cavill insists that respect for the Foundation is equally necessary. Their visions collide, not in a burst of drama, but in a quiet, uncomfortable truth. They were never aligned. Not fully. Not in the way fans once believed. And then the turning point comes. Cavill, in this fictional account, tells her something simple yet devastating. If a parody reflects what fans fear, then ignoring it only confirms their fears. That line spreads like wildfire across fan forums, though no one can prove he said it. It becomes the quote people latch on to, the symbol of the entire confrontation. Some treat it like fact, others treat it like legend, but either way, it explodes. Word of the fictional conversation leaks into online online spaces in fragments, tiny pieces, vague descriptions, unverified whispers. No one knows what was said exactly, but the idea alone is enough to send the fandom into a frenzy. Some claim Cavill tried to save the show. Others say Lauren refused to listen. A few argue the conversation was respectful but tense. Regardless of which version people believe, the narrative spreads faster than any official statement ever could. Suddenly, Cavill is back in the center of the Witcher universe, even though he never intended to be. And Lauren, already dealing with pressure from the parody and fan backlash, now has a new storm forming around her. Because once the idea of a confrontation takes hold, even a fictional one, it becomes impossible to contain, and the consequences start stacking like dominoes. It doesn't take long for the fictional rumors about Cavill and Lauren's tense exchange to explode across the internet. At first, it's just speculation on a few fan forums, quiet discussions, whispers, people asking if anyone else has heard something. But within hours, those whispers turn into claims. Claims turn into threads. Threads turn into viral posts. Suddenly, every corner of the fandom is flooded with theories about how the conversation went down. Some fans imagine a fiery debate. Others picture a cold, restrained disagreement. A few insist it was emotional on both sides. None of it is confirmed, of course. But the lack of confirmation only fuels the fire. People begin piecing together their own versions of events, creating a storm of speculation that Lauren absolutely cannot control. The clip from Family Guy keeps resurfacing, but now it's layered with new meaning. Fans play it back and say, this is exactly what Henry was talking about. Whether or not he ever actually said those things doesn't matter. The belief alone is powerful enough to ignite the entire fanbase. Suddenly, the parody becomes more than satire. It becomes evidence, proof of a deeper issue viewers believe has been building for years. Support for Cavill skyrockets. People call him the real Geralt, the guardian of the lore, the only one who understood the story. They treat him like he stepped in to defend the Witcher world from falling apart. Even though the entire narrative is fictional, his name trends for days. Fans demand his return. Some even joke that he should direct season 5. It gets wild, fast, but the other side of the storm is far harsher. Lauren becomes the primary target of criticism. People blame her for ignoring fan concerns, accuse her of mishandling the story, and question every creative decision leading up to season 4. Even viewers who hadn't kept up with the series join the conversation because the drama is impossible to avoid. She becomes the symbol of everything people think went wrong, fair or not, true or not. And then the memes arrive, thousands of them. Memes comparing Cavill's Geralt to the new version, memes roasting story changes, memes portraying Lauren as oblivious to fan feedback, memes stitching Cavill's fictional quote over reaction shots. The internet becomes a battlefield of humor and criticism, and the backlash grows heavier with every new post. But what makes the chaos truly unstoppable is the feeling that the fans themselves are rewriting the narrative. They're not waiting for Netflix to respond. They're not waiting for official statements. They're not waiting for anyone. They're driving the conversation entirely on their own. And each time someone adds a new rumor or theory, the story becomes harder to control. Within days, the fictional confrontation becomes part of Witcher fandom canon, a moment fans talk about like it actually happened. It doesn't matter how many times it's clarified as speculation. It doesn't matter that sources are vague. What matters is the emotional impact. People want to believe Cavill fought for the show they loved. They want to believe he tried to protect the story. And they want someone to blame for the direction they fear season 4 is headed. By this point, even Netflix can't ignore the storm, but that's where the next chapter begins. And it only gets more intense from here. As the fictional confrontation rumor spirals, Netflix finds itself stuck in a storm it never expected to deal with. Normally, a meme or parody briefly rips through social media and disappears within a day or two. But this time, it kept growing. Every hour, the Family Guy scene was being reposted in new formats. Remixes, breakdowns, animated edits, even AI parodies of the parody. The internet wasn't just laughing at the joke. It was treating the joke like a review of season 4. Behind the scenes, fictional whispers begin to echo through the Netflix offices. Executives start paying attention to the sudden spike in negative sentiment. Marketing teams scramble to shift their strategy. Meetings that were once calm and confident now take on a far more uneasy tone. The concern isn't just about the parody, it's the way audiences are treating it as confirmation that something has gone seriously wrong. Season 4 was supposed to be a fresh start, a bold new chapter, a chance for the series to reinvent itself. But instead, the parody and the leaked confrontation rumor create a tidal wave that threatens to overshadow every piece of promotional material. Even the official trailers are struggling to gain traction. Whenever the marketing team posts a clip, the comments fill instantly with jokes, references to the Family Guy roast, and demands to bring Henry Cavill back. And Netflix knows exactly what that means. The show's reputation is slipping out of their control. In this fictional scenario, internal discussions begin about how to handle the situation. Some executives supposedly argue that the backlash is temporary and will fade once the season airs. Others express concern that the show has drifted too far from the elements that made it successful in the first place. A few even suggest reaching out to Cavill for a public show of support, not to bring him back, but to restore confidence. But the deeper conversations revolve around Lauren, not personally, but professionally. Fans are targeting her decisions. Critics are dissecting her vision. Commentators are are questioning whether the writing has drifted from the spirit of the source material, Netflix understands that the backlash isn't just about the new Geralt. It's about the direction of the entire universe. The fictional rumor of Cavill confronting Lauren only intensifies the narrative that the show has lost its anchor. And because Netflix knows how powerful fan perception can be, they begin quietly evaluating their options. According to the fictional speculation spreading across fan forums, they consider everything from script adjustments to narrative rewrites to last-minute promotional changes. But the biggest concern isn't the content itself, it's the trust. Fans no longer believe the show understands what they want. They feel unheard, dismissed, and pushed aside. And once a fan base feels that way, it becomes almost impossible to win them back without a dramatic course correction. Netflix tries to regain control by releasing behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, and reassurance that Season 4 will be faithful, grounded, and respectful. But the comments tell a different story. People aren't buying it, not when the parody is still trending, not when speculation about the Cavill-Lauren disagreement continues to grow, and not when memes keep painting the new season as a complete disaster before it even premieres. At this point, the situation is bigger than the showrunner, bigger than Cavill, bigger than Family Guy. The Witcher Season 4 is facing an identity crisis, one people believe started long before the parody, but was finally exposed because of it. And while Netflix tries to steady the ship, a new question begins circulating among fans. Did the Family Guy roast actually force the show to change? Or was it already too late? As the fictional fallout continues, fans begin dissecting every aspect of the upcoming season, turning rumors into theories and theories into predictions. They start analyzing the trailers frame by frame, looking for clues about tone, character development, and storytelling direction. And the more they analyze, the more they become convinced that the Family Guy parody has fundamentally shifted the conversation around Season 4. Even reviewers and industry insiders begin weighing in. Some say the parody exposed issues that had been bubbling under the surface for years. Others claim it's all exaggerated, and the show deserves a fair chance. But regardless of which side they fall on, everyone agrees on one thing. The parody has changed expectations. People aren't going into the season hoping for improvement. They're going in looking for proof that the show can recover. In this fictional environment, speculation grows that the writers might have gone back to tweak scenes or adjust certain character choices. Nobody can confirm it, but the rumor spreads anyway. Fans imagine late-night meetings, emergency rewriting sessions, directors being told to adjust tone, even actors being asked to re-record certain lines. Whether any of this is true doesn't matter. The idea alone becomes part of the narrative fans cling to. But the biggest shift comes from the fans themselves. They begin reclaiming the Cavill era as a golden age. They rewatch old scenes, praise his performance, and highlight the moments where the show felt grounded and cohesive. They compare those scenes to the rumored direction of Season 4, creating a contrast that only strengthens their disappointment in the new approach. And the fictional rumor of Cavill confronting Lauren becomes a symbol of what fans believe went wrong, a clash between passion and control, between lore and creative freedom. People begin asking questions that hit deeper than any meme or joke. Should a showrunner follow their own vision or honor the original material? How far can a series drift from its roots before fans walk away? Is change good for the story, or does it erase what made the story great in the first place? The Family Guy roast becomes the catalyst for these debates. It becomes the moment fans point to as the turning point, the instant everything snapped into focus. And even though the parody was meant for laughs, it accidentally forced the fan base to confront the uncomfortable truth. The show they loved might not be the same anymore. As speculation builds, people become increasingly skeptical about Season 4's ability to meet expectations. The fictional Cavill-Lauren confrontation only intensifies that skepticism. To fans, it represents the internal conflict between storytelling integrity and creative experimentation. And even though that confrontation is imaginary, it captures the emotional reality viewers feel. In the end, the parody didn't just roast the show, it exposed something much deeper, a disconnect between creator and audience, a disconnect that can't be fixed with a trailer or marketing push, a disconnect that forces fans to question whether Season 4 can recover at all. And as expectations shift, the future of The Witcher begins to feel uncertain, fragile, unpredictable, and entirely dependent on how the show responds to the storm swirling around it. By the time the dust begins to settle, one thing becomes crystal clear. The Family Guy parody didn't break The Witcher. It revealed the cracks that were already there. The fictional confrontation between Henry Cavill and Lauren Schmidt Hissrich becomes more than a rumor. It becomes a story fans cling to, a symbol of the fight between loyalty to the source material and the push toward a reinvented version of the show. Whether the conversation actually happened doesn't matter. What matters is what it represents. A clash of visions, a collision of expectations, and the emotional weight of a franchise loved by millions. Netflix is left balancing a series on the edge of a knife. Fans are watching closely, waiting for signs of improvement, authenticity, and respect for the world they fell in love with. The show's future depends on reconnecting with the audience, not with promises, but with execution. Because once a parody hits harder than the show itself, the message becomes impossible to ignore. And now the question isn't whether Season 4 will succeed. It's whether the series can regain the trust that slipped away, whether it can rediscover the heart that made fans invest so deeply, and whether this fictional drama, from the parody to the confrontation, onto the backlash, will push The Witcher toward a necessary transformation, or mark the moment everything changed forever.